Welcome back to part 61 of Neo and Jiho's love story. As Tumi Molefe enters a world of Insu she never imagined, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out. The jet lifted into the night as if the earth itself had decided to loosen its grip. The city lights below shrank into tiny dots, then into nothing, and soon only the steady hum of the engines and the dark sky remained. Tumi sat back in the soft leather seat, trying to breathe in all that had happened that day. The dance, the applause, the announcement with her name glowing on a screen, and now this, a private flight into a future she could barely name. She felt hungry. The excitement of the gala had carried her through, but now her body asked for something simple. When she turned her head, she found Insu already watching her with that quiet smile that never demanded anything, only offered. "You must be tired," he said softly. "And hungry," she admitted. Without ceremony, he guided her toward the table already prepared. No servers moved around, no clinking trays. Everything was already waiting. Plates of warm food sat ready under soft glass covers, glasses filled with water and juice, and beside them, the glow of small lights shaped like candles. They looked real at first, flickering as though the air had stirred them, but there was no fire, only a soft glow that filled the cabin with warmth. Tumi ran her fingers near one. They look like candles." "They are," Insu replied, "just safer ones, light without fire." She smiled at the thought. "So even the flames here are not allowed to burn?" "They burn differently," he said, "without smoke, without danger, only light." She sat down across from him, the table between them smaller than at any restaurant, so close that she could see the fine lines near his eyes when he smiled. The plates were simple: rice, grilled chicken, vegetables, and it made her heart soften. Her fork trembled slightly in her hand, not from nerves but from the strange weight of knowing how much her life had changed in only hours. They began to eat, not in silence, but in the kind of quiet that feels safe. Every so often she lifted her eyes and found him watching her, and she would smile before returning to her plate. After a while, she broke the quiet. "Insu, the song they played at the gala, was it from Jiho? I have never heard it before." He nodded slowly, his eyes softening. "Yes. He wrote it only a week ago, for us, while preparing all of this." She let her fork rest and leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed again. It was beautiful. Every word felt like it knew what tonight was about. I wanted to cry, but I was afraid if I started, I wouldn't stop. He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "Thank you, Insu, for everything. Everything you have shown me in your world is new for me." Insu's eyes were mellow, exactly the way he looks when his body feels the excitement. Before Tumi finished, he leaned over and placed a kiss on her hand. He glanced at her. "Tumi, you are the most natural woman I have ever get to know." Tumi then said to Insu, "With all this, I even don't know what I can ever give to you. You have everything in this world, I think. Look at this." Insu reached for her hand again. "Please, Tumi, all this can't buy love. You have something that makes me complete. It's not bought. It's the God-given abundant love. It's in your heart. I can't touch it, I can't buy it. I can only receive it if you show it to me." This melted Tumi. Her body started to give in. His soft look melted her. Tumi then said she needed to go to toilet. When she reached the door, it wasn't the usual toilet plain doors. She then told Insu, "Do I need a degree to learn how to open this too?" Insu burst into laughter. "No, you don't. Press the code." "What's the number?" she asked. "Use your birthday," he said. When Tumi did, the door opened. She entered in disbelief. "This isn't normal, either I am dreaming," she told herself. She then went back to collect Insu. She beckoned him closer, half serious, half playful. "Insu, what is this? How could this be a mere toilet? I am beginning to get scared of you." Her eyes widened with disbelief as she spun slowly in the room, the gown brushing the polished floor. He leaned on the doorframe, laughing low in his throat. "Scared of me?" he teased. "Of a sink and a mirror?" "Yes!" she shot back, her hand pressed to her chest. If this is only the toilet, then I cannot imagine what the rest of this jet is hiding. Tell me, am I still safe? Her words were light, but the sparkle in her eyes pulled a laugh out of him so full, so unrestrained, it echoed against the marble walls. You're safe, he said finally, catching his breath. Safer than anyone has ever been. I only wanted you to feel that you belong in every corner of my world. She turned toward the mirror then, resting both palms on the counter as her reflection stared back at her. For a long second, she only looked at her gown, her curls, the glow on her cheeks, and then at him, standing just behind her shoulder. Her voice softened. You are everything I never thought existed, Insu? Insu stepped forward until his frame filled the reflection behind her. He reached down and slid his fingers over hers on the counter. Their eyes met in the glass, and for a moment, the mirror felt like a window into a secret no one else could touch. I haven't done enough, he replied. You have everything, she whispered. What could you possibly be missing? His answer came without hesitation. You. Her breath caught. The weight of that one word made her chest swell and her knees weaken. He bent slightly, lips brushing the edge of her shoulder, and his hand rose to touch the zipper at the back of her dress. I'll tickle you until you apologize, she warned softly, her smile trembling with emotion. For having a jet with such a toilet. He chuckled against her skin. Then I'll never apologize. He began to slide the zipper gently, slowly, as if the fabric itself might bruise under too much haste. She felt his body reaction, the heat radiating from him as his hand moved. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from the sudden gravity of the moment. As the dress loosened, she turned toward him, caught between laughter and surrender. And then his lips were on hers. It wasn't the kiss of uncertainty. It was deep, deliberate, the kind of kiss that wrote promises without words. His hands steadied her waist, while hers pressed against his chest, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat, steady and strong. The marble walls, the golden mirror, the silence of the jet beyond, all of it blurred, leaving only this center, his mouth, her breath, the shiver of being chosen so completely. They stood like that for a moment, her ear pressed against his heartbeat, his arms steady around her. The mirror reflected two people who seemed suspended between laughter and tears, their silhouettes bound together in a space that once seemed too extravagant to belong to her. She finally pulled back, wiping at the corners of her eyes. Now let me breathe, she teased gently. I came in here to see a toilet, not to lose myself completely. Insu laughed again, the sound filling the room with warmth. Then I'll give you space, but not too much. He stepped back slightly, his hand still trailing lightly over her arms as if unwilling to fully let go. She turned again toward the mirror, studying her reflection, whispering almost to herself. This isn't normal. Either I'm dreaming or I've been carried into someone else's life. He caught her eyes in the reflection. No, Tumi, this is your life now. Her throat tightened at the certainty in his tone. She gripped the counter and nodded once, as if trying to anchor herself. At last she drew in a deep breath and smoothed the fabric of her gown. Fine, I'll accept it. The words slipped out before she could second-guess them, and she knew in that moment they were true. The corridor opened toward the bedroom suite of the private jet. Spacious, elegant, even more breathtaking than the toilet had been. Tumi froze at the threshold, her breath catching. The room was unlike anything she had ever imagined could exist on a plane. Walls curved with sleek lines of black and ivory, soft lights glowing from hidden corners, and a bed so large and inviting it seemed to call her by name. Her feet refused to move. Insu, she said softly. This cannot be real. We are flying, but it feels like a home. He came up beside her, resting his hand lightly against the small of her back. It is real, and tonight, it is ours. She walked in slowly, her eyes moving from the chandelier that glittered faintly above to the wide windows framing the night sky. She touched the edge of the bed, the silk cover cool under her palm. It looks softer than clouds, she whispered. Try it, he said. She lay back gently, and a sigh left her lips without permission. This is not fair. He sat beside her, smiling as he loosened his tie and rolled his sleeves. Then let us be unfair tonight. For a moment she looked at him, her heart trembling. Then she admitted, Insu, I don't feel anything. No shaking, no turbulence. It's like I'm floating in a dream. Why don't I feel anything? He smiled gently. Because of the route. This way is always calm. That is why I chose it. You are safe. His voice, calm and steady, washed over her like the soft lights in the ceiling. Slowly, the fear loosened its grip. She reached for his hand, and he laced their fingers together. Better? He asked. Better, she whispered. They lay side by side, staring up at the soft reflection of lights that looked like distant stars. She turned onto her side and looked at him, studying the face that had carried her from surprise to surprise. He touched her cheek gently, brushing a stray curl aside, and for a moment, nothing else existed but the warmth between them. Soon her body grew heavy with the weight of the day. The lights were dim, golden reflections from the chandelier casting warmth over the sleek cabin. Insu stretched out on the bed beside Tumi, his hand brushing against hers. He smiled softly, his voice low and calm. Today was a long day, wasn't it? He asked, squeezing her fingers. Tumi nodded, her eyes sparkling as she turned toward him. Yes, but it was beautiful. Everything feels new to me, Insu. Like I'm living in a dream I don't want to wake from. Insu chuckled gently, leaning closer. Then don't wake. Just stay here, with me. They locked eyes, laughter escaping between them as they played with each other's hands. The comfort of his presence wrapped around her like the silk blankets spread across the bed. Tumi tilted her head, her curls brushing the pillow as she gazed at him with quiet curiosity. Insu, she asked softly, her voice carrying the tone of wonder, how often do you come to France? Her question was simple, but there was depth behind it. She was not only asking about his travels, she was asking about his world, about the parts of him she had not yet discovered. Insu's expression grew calm, his lips curving into the kind of smile that came not from politeness, but from sincerity. France, he repeated, his voice low and thoughtful. More times than I can count, sometimes for business, sometimes for rest. His words settled in the air, warm and deliberate, and Tumi's heart stirred. She looked at him more intently, but before she could respond, Insu shifted the conversation. His eyes softened as if he had been holding back something small but important. Tumi, he said slowly, do you like the idea of learning to drive? The question surprised her, and for a moment she only blinked, searching his face. He was serious, yet playful, like a man offering her a new piece of freedom. Her lips parted, but before she answered, she only gazed at him in silence, long enough for him to feel the quiet storm in her eyes. Yes, she whispered finally, a soft yes, as though it carried more meaning than just driving. He leaned closer, his voice dropping lower, almost like a secret. I wanted to tell you this before, but somehow I forgot. His words held a weight of confession, and his gaze grew piercing, searching her eyes until she felt her soul turn bare. Her throat tightened, and she said his name gently, like it was the most precious word she knew. Insu. Yes, Tumi? You can't look at me like this. Her voice was trembling, but her eyes never left his. Her gaze was inviting, trembling but bold, meeting the gravity of his own. She felt it, the pull that made silence louder than speech, the current that tugged her closer. She didn't know how long they stayed like that, but she knew the instant his restraint broke. Without waiting, he leaned into her, warm and firm, and she met him with all the softness in her heart. There were no words after that, just the quiet rhythm of two souls answering each other. The cabin, the world outside, the hum of the engines, everything dissolved into the gentle fire between them. Sleep took them naturally, as though it had been waiting. Wrapped in his arms, Tumi drifted like a child, safe and unafraid, her breaths steady against his chest. Insu remained awake a little longer, listening to her small murmurs, memorizing the way her face softened in peace. Eventually, he surrendered too, his embrace never loosening. Hours passed, the night giving way to the faint promise of dawn. It was Insu who woke first, stirred by the quiet awareness of nearing land. The pilot's voice had not yet announced the descent, but Insu knew. They had less than an hour before the journey ended. He did not move. He simply lay there, watching every bit of her face as though he might never see it again. The soft curl of her lashes, the gentle curve of her lips, the quiet way her chest rose and fell. She was beauty in its purest form, and she was his. Leaning closer, his voice no more than a breath, he whispered, "I love you more than you think, Tumi. May God bless our lives." Her eyelids fluttered as if she had heard him even in her dreams, but she did not wake. He kissed her forehead softly and held her until the cabin lights brightened slightly, a signal of the approaching morning. When at last Tumi stirred awake, it was with a sleepy smile, her body curling deeper into his. "Are we there?" she mumbled, her voice thick with drowsiness. "Almost," Insu answered gently, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "But there's still time." She stretched a little, yawning softly, and then looked at him with shy laughter. "You watched me sleep, didn't you?" "I couldn't help it," he admitted with no shame. "You sleep like a baby, peaceful, untouched." Her laughter warmed the room, and she reached to touch his hand. "Then watch me a little longer." He did, until a soft chime rang through the cabin, and a stewardess discreetly entered, her smile polite. "Breakfast is ready if you'd like it before we land." Insu nodded, still holding Tumi's hand. "Bring it in." A spread of warm croissants, fresh fruit, soft scrambled eggs, and tea that filled the air with fragrance. The tablecloth was white, the silver polished, everything prepared with care. Tumi blinked in surprise. "Breakfast in bed on a plane? Insu, this is too much." "Nothing is too much when it's for you," he said simply, unfolding a napkin and placing it on her lap. They ate slowly, feeding each other little pieces, laughing at the way crumbs clung to their fingers. Between sips of tea and quiet conversation, they spoke of Paris, the streets they would walk, the little cafes they would visit, the gardens they would lose themselves in. It wasn't the food that filled them. It was the warmth of each other's company, the promise of new mornings together, the knowledge that even after the plane touched the ground, their journey was only beginning. By the time the stewardess returned to clear the tray, they were both smiling, their hearts lighter than when the night had begun. And as the captain's voice finally came over the intercom to announce their descent into France, Insu took Tumi's hand one more time and whispered, "Welcome to our tomorrow." She leaned into him, her smile quiet but full, and together they waited for the landing, hearts steady, love unshaken, their day just beginning. The black jet touched down with a smooth, confident glide, its wheels kissing the runway as though the landing had been rehearsed 1,000 times before. Dawn was stretching its light over the horizon, painting the tarmac with hues of gold and amber. The engines hummed softly as the aircraft slowed, taxied off the main strip, and rolled toward the private general aviation terminal reserved for private jets. Moments later, the jet came to a gentle stop near a discreet bay. From the outside, all was still and quiet, but inside, Tumi could feel her heartbeat rising. She glanced at Insu, who gave her a calm, steady smile. With a faint hiss, the aircraft door unlocked. A staircase folded down smoothly, revealing the world outside. The air was crisp, touched with the faintest hint of morning dew. Tumi and Insu rose together, moving toward the exit. As they appeared at the doorway, a small, welcoming party was already gathered at the foot of the stairs. The men and women were dressed immaculately, their postures polite yet warm. "Bonjour," one of them greeted in a cheerful tone. Tumi smiled instantly, her voice carrying a hint of wonder as she replied, "Bonjour." Insu echoed her, his deep tone calm but equally warm. Bonjour. They descended the staircase slowly, Insu'S hand resting lightly on the rail, Tumi's footsteps graceful beside him. The morning sun lit their faces, and with every step down, the warmth of the welcome deepened. Bonjour, Mr. Insu'S, another voice said respectfully, bowing slightly as the group greeted them. No titles, no extra formalities, just warmth. Insu gave a simple nod of acknowledgement, his expression kind. Tumi felt a gentle pride bloom inside her chest. She was walking beside a man who commanded respect without ever asking for it. At the bottom of the staircase, a sleek black car waited. It wasn't a limousine, yet it bore the elegance of one. Its long body gleamed under the morning light, and the moment the chauffeur opened the door, Tumi's eyes widened slightly. Her eyes flicked to Insu, who looked at ease, as though every step of this had been ordinary. Finally, her curiosity broke through. "Insu?" she asked softly. "What about the checking in? Aren't we supposed to pass through clearance?" Insu turned his head toward her, his expression gentle. He reached out and wrapped her hand in his touch steady and warm. "Everything has been cleared already, Tumi. The pilot arranged it before we landed. You don't need to worry about that anymore." Her eyes widened slightly, and then a laugh slipped from her lips. "I have a lot to learn. You have a lot to teach me. Actually," she added, lowering her voice playfully, "it looks like I might have to drop out of university just to first understand this world." He leaned back, shaking his head as he laughed louder than she'd ever heard him before. "I can't believe you, Tumi," he said between chuckles. "You are so funny. The things you say, they are so interesting. And that is exactly why I love you." His words, so freely spoken, carried warmth that melted into her. Tumi laughed with him, her own giggles bubbling until they blended together in harmony. They weren't just laughing at the joke. They were laughing at the joy of being together, at the strange magic of understanding one another without effort. Tumi covered her mouth, still smiling as her laughter softened. She turned to him with bright eyes. The car continued its smooth ride, gliding past airport fences and into the roads leading toward the villa.